Hey, what's up, everyone? Glad you could make it. There's a small but meaningful update for ARMA Reforger that just rolled out, version 1.060.076, and I want to walk you through what changed, why it matters, and what people in the community are already saying about it. First off, this patch isn't a content explosion. It's one of those careful, maintenance-focused updates that smooth a few rough edges, tweak some balance at the low ends, and quietly remove a visual option that generated more debate than it deserved. The most visible tweak you'll notice if you jump into the game is that the so-called night grain effect has been disabled by default and is turned off on official servers, although server operators can still re-enable it if they prefer the older look using a command line flag. That change came because the effect was originally introduced as an anti-exploit measure to make it harder for players to simply crank gamma and see in the dark. But feedback suggested the visual outcome felt intrusive for many players, so the developers have opted to make it opt-in for communities that want it. Another practical change targets early progression. The MSAR limits for the first 3 ranks were adjusted upward, allowing privates, corporals, and sergeants access to higher MSAR ceilings than before. For players who felt frustrated by being locked out of slightly better loadouts until they'd slogged through the very beginning grind, this is a welcome quality of life shift. It doesn't break the system, it just loosens the leash a little, so new recruits can be more competitive and flexible while they learn the ropes. That tweak is small in isolation, but combined with other fixes, makes the onboarding experience less stingy and more playable for new or returning folks. Behind the scenes, this build addresses a handful of stability and replication problems that were causing freezes and crashes for some players. Community reports had flagged a few recurring crash modes and odd replication behavior, and the patch notes specifically call out fixes intended to reduce those incidents. From the anecdotal side, players on forums and subreddit threads were already posting about mid-session crashes and hoping for relief, so this update should meaningfully reduce those interruptions, at least for the particular failure modes the devs targeted. Naturally, stability work is iterative, but it's encouraging to see a focused push on reliability rather than only pushing new features. There are also a handful of tidy-ups and bug fixes that matter more than they sound. Localization for certain task text was corrected, which prevents confusing or untranslated prompts in specific missions. The weapon UI was fixed so that it no longer displays when you're not actually holding a weapon, and some obsolete animation files were removed from workspaces, which can be important for creators who maintain mods or custom content. Stripping unused assets is a behind-the-curtain housekeeping task that helps keep the workspace cleaner and can reduce accidental dependencies or surprises when people update their mods. If you're a content author, it's worth testing your work after the update, just in case something referenced an asset that's now gone. Speaking of the community reaction, the update has produced the usual blend of relief and nitpicking. Several players chimed in to note that crashes they were seeing prior to the patch were at least reduced in frequency after installing it, while others are still reporting isolated problems, not unusual when a patch only addresses a subset of crash causes. The night grain discussion remains lively. Some folks appreciated the original intent to curb gamma exploits, while others welcomed the default off decision because it made night visuals feel less artificial and more comfortable to play with. Server admins have already been posting about whether they'll toggle the effect back on for roleplay or realism reasons, so expect that visual to vary by server for a while. For anyone who manages or runs a server, the practical notes are straightforward. If you rely on official server defaults, the night grain option is off and you don't have to do anything. But if your community preferred the film grain look for aesthetic reasons, you'll need to pass the enable night grain argument to re-enable it. Also, if your server uses bespoke mods or custom workspaces, check for references to removed animation files or retired assets. A quick compatibility test after the update saves headaches for your players. The game's official news post and several coverage sites list the changes and the small adjustments to gameplay economics and stability, so those are the places the devs and community are pointing to for confirmation. It's worth saying a quick word about context. This update came as part of the ongoing maintenance cadence the developers have established after the major 1.6 rollout earlier, which introduced larger features and new operations. Small patches like this aren't flashy, but they're the sort of steady fixes that keep a live service healthy week to week. They restore trust that the team is listening to reports, triaging issues, and nudging balance where it visibly impacts player experience. Again, stability fixes are rarely exhaustive in a single drop, but cumulative improvements across several of these maintenance releases add up to a noticeably smoother experience over time. So that's the rundown: a targeted stability pass, an accessibility tweak to early game purchasing limits, the removal of a contested visual effect from default settings, and some small but meaningful bug and localization fixes. Nothing earth-shattering, but each of those items matters in practice. Fewer crashes, less visual noise if you don't want it, and a gentler early progression curve. Players and server operators will probably feel the change most directly, while creators should give their mods a quick verification run to ensure compatibility. Thanks for listening. Jump in, see how the game runs for you now, and enjoy whatever session you get into next.